Alright guys, here's part 2 of my self-identity series. I think this is probably going to be my final part of this little series, but we'll see. So the first part I talked about the theories of self-identity, the body theory, the soul consciousness theory, the memory and personality theory, and the no-self theory. I spent a lot of time talking about the no-self theory and a little bit of the soul consciousness theory. So I gave the analogy of this ship, right? That if you think of yourself, you're like who you are as this ship. And if we were to trade planks, one plank at a time, at what point would you be a new ship, a new self, or something else entirely? And this, I want to introduce another analogy, and this is the teleporter. So you have a teleporter on Earth, then you have one on the moon. And this teleporter, it works by, when you teleport, your atoms, they disintegrate and then they get regenerated on the moon. And the question is when your atoms disintegrate, that's kind of like a death in a way if you think about it. Like you're no different than somebody who's just been cremated. And then when they rearrange, that's like you being born again. So the question is how do you know if you were to go through that teleporter and go on the moon, how would you know that you are the same person as you are? Let me ask it this other way. If your friend went through the teleporter, how would you know that they are still your friend, that their self still exists? And there's the body theory that says that, well, they have the same body on the moon, so therefore they are the same because they have the same body. All their atoms are perfectly rearranged just like they were on Earth, so therefore they're the same person. But with identical twins and stuff, this will be more complicated, right? Because that's where body theory gets its limitations from, is that like body theory is that whole view that you are your body. So this is where body theory has some limitations on it, is that just because you look the same does not mean that you are the same, if that makes sense. And so this is where memory theory will come in, is that memory theory says that you are your memories. So if the person on Earth who is now on the moon, if they still have a memory of their whole life from when they were on Earth, then they're the same person, because memory connects us to ourself. So they are the same person because they have the same memories. But then this view is challenged as well by this teleporter analogy as well, is that what if I made a different clone, and this clone AI, it had all your same memories? Would that now be you? But then you'd be like, no, I'm on the moon, but you made this AI on Earth, and so therefore, this AI is not me. Well, it has your memories. It might not have your body, but it has your memories, so that's kind of challenged too. Is that just because somebody has the same memories as you doesn't mean that they are you? But you could argue that they are you, because if you define yourself as only your memories, then sure, but the memory theory has limitations, because there was a time that you existed, that you were a self before you had any memories of it. And some people will kind of argue against me, that they'll kind of argue that no, like the self only develops when memory develops, and that's kind of why our sense of self emerges at like age 4 or 3 years old, because that's when our memories start to develop. And you can think about it like that too, but it depends on what you think of the self as. Like, what I mean by the self is something that is the most fundamental, that is the reason for your existence. And memory is not the reason for your existence, because you can exist without your memories. There's people that have dementia. They still have a self. They still have a consciousness within them that exists even though they don't have memories. And of course their memory self will be impaired, but they will still have experiences. And so this is where I'm going to argue for the soul consciousness theory. And like I said before, I don't really agree with the idea of a soul, because a soul already implies that dualism is true, that there's a mind and then there's a body, and that they're both distinct somehow. But I argue that the mind and body aren't distinct, that the body is actually just consciousness. And so what I'm going to argue here is for the consciousness theory, the idea that you are consciousness, you are the subject, you are the experience. And I think this is true because if you can't find experience in a body or brain. That's like the limitation behind it, is that it's a first-hand experience. Because if you go through the teleporter and you land on moon, how do you know that you're still the same? Well, you still have experiences, right? You can still experience yourself as the same. When you go through the teleporter on Earth and you land on moon, like, you have the memories of still, like, oh wow, yeah, I went through this teleporter, I have that memory. But even beyond that, even if you didn't have a memory at all, you still have this experience that you exist. You still have consciousness. It's not like you don't have consciousness. It's like if you're asleep, you don't know if you exist or not, because you don't have any experience, unless of course you are dreaming and stuff like that. And if you go through this teleporter and you no longer experience anything, then you couldn't really say that anything exists, because there is no experience for you to confirm whether it exists or not. So it's interesting. So I really feel like the consciousness theory is true, that you are consciousness. The issue is that it's hard to define and pinpoint what that really is. And I argue that anything that you experience, you're connected to it. You're not separate from it, like that dualism implies, because you experience something, you're connected to it, and all that.